Hello everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. And I just have a bunch of COVID information to share with you today. Remember to go to makeamericans.freeagain.com and sign up on our website to join our cause. I'll remind you again, homeschool parents who want to homeschool, we have a great resource center there for you. And we're working to bring new resources. Every week we'll have new resources added. We're working very, very hard to help change this despotic mess, dystopian nightmare we're living in. So thank you for your support. I do appreciate all the wonderful emails you send me. It warms my heart when I'm by myself in the middle of the night trying to keep going, because there is so much to do, and sometimes I feel I'm just one person. What can one person do? Fortunately, I have a building full of fabulous people here who work very hard with me and are very dedicated to this cause as well. But thanks for your support. It really means a lot to me. Some of you in foreign countries, in fact, my first news piece comes from the UK, are asking what you can do. And we will be happy to make any of our resources available to groups in foreign countries who want to start an effort like ours. Remember, the idea is the biggest group of people surrounding a single issue, so that we can just overwhelm the system with lawsuits and protests and civil disobedience and voting blocks to get rid of politicians who we want to get rid of, and vote in people who support what we support. So if you're interested in starting something in a foreign country, we'd be outside of the United States, let us know and we'd be happy to help you. All right, so public health officials in the UK have inflated the number of cases by counting each test twice. Well, that's one way to do it. When diagnostic tests were used that involved taking both a saliva sample and a nasal sample from the same patients, the test was counted as two separate tests instead of a test on a single person. This led to inflated case numbers, and both the Department of Health and Social Care and Public Health England acknowledged that they had done this. So I guess if you're trying to plan a fake pandemic, you got to find some way to have fake numbers to support it. I said that a day or two ago, and they did it in the UK too. This is not the only instance in which the UK government was caught inflating data. In April, public health authorities included thousands of home tests which had been mailed out but not completed. So they counted the tests as positive by putting them in the mail. I mean, it's just, you can't make this stuff up, right? So anyway, it's not limited to the United States, this type of misbehavior. It's going on all over the world, including in the UK. I found an interesting thing. Actually, it was sent to me. You guys send me wonderful resources too. This business of mask wearing, which I'm not wearing a mask. I've never worn a mask. Not going to wear a mask, actually. But anyway, in states they're mandating it, and the Emperor Newsom, the ruler of Californians, has ordered them to wear masks, even if outdoors, if they can't maintain social distance. You know how terrible it would be if people got sun on their face and breathed in fresh air. Again, great moments in public health. We don't want anybody to do that. Well, our rulers are not interested in science, so there's really no reason to negotiate with them or prepare anything for them, so that's why we have to do Make Americans Free Again. But I did find some guidelines from the state of California Department of Public Health concerning the use of masks when there are wildfires. And it's amazing how different the recommendations are and what they say about all of this versus for COVID. So scarves, I'll just read some excerpts to you. Scarves, bandanas, tissues, and anything not marked N95 or better are not helpful. Surgical masks that trap small particles are designed to filter air coming out of the wearer's mouth and do not provide a good seal to prevent inhalation of small particles or gases and smoke. So they're not going to help with viruses either. People with breathing problems, ironically, they use the term ironically, are discouraged from wearing a mask without getting a doctor's recommendation. In other words, when there's a wildfire, if you have breathing problems, you actually have to consult your doctor before wearing a mask, all right? Not with COVID. In one statement, the California Department of Public Health writes, quote, "Wearing a mask may actually be harmful to some people with heart or lung disease because it can make the lungs work harder to breathe. A doctor will look at the patient's condition, ability to draw in air, and guide them on how to make it fit right if recommended." Small children should not wear masks. California's Department of Public Health points out children should not wear these masks. They do not fit properly and can impede breathing. If the air quality is poor enough that a child requires a mask, the child should remain indoors in a safe place, and evacuation should be considered. Evacuate yourself out of California and go someplace better to live, right? That's where you want to go. But anyway, I just went to the grocery store today to pick up a couple of things. I couldn't believe the number of little kids, 6, 7 years old, wearing masks. Not a good idea. Not a good idea for anybody. People indoors should not wear masks. The air isn't as bad isn't as bad indoors, and the mask can restrict breathing and increase breathing carbon dioxide, making you feel worse, not better. So the California Department of Public Health says, don't wear a mask inside. The Emperor Newsom says, you have to wear a mask everywhere, all right? People with beards shouldn't wear masks because the air is going to come from around the edges and not be filtered anyway, so the mask just makes breathing hard with no real filtering. So they're acknowledging the masks make breathing hard, and you don't filter if the edges aren't real tight. Sacramento County issued an advisory saying N95 respirator can make it more difficult for the wearer to breathe due to carbon dioxide buildup, which reduces the intake of oxygen, increasing breathing rates and heart rates. The bottom line is if you have lung disease, ask your doctor. But if you don't want to get lung disease, you don't want to be breathing in carbon dioxide. Sacramento County also said the risks of N95 respirator use outside of fire zones outweighs the benefits. Most people will not contact their healthcare provider before using this. This can lead to increased heart rate, respiratory rate, work of breathing, CO2 buildup into microambient air, and potentially pose risks to sensitive populations. So anyway, apparently Newsom doesn't check with the health department and has no interest in knowing anything about the science. I said that before. That's why we have to do this initiative that we're doing, because there's nobody interested in this kind of information, only interested in terrorizing the population and increasingly arbitrary rules that are imposed on the population for absolutely no reason at all. All right, on to the next piece of news. Joe Biden is likely to be the nominee for president in November. And of course, he criticizes Trump. I mean, part of campaigning is you criticize your opponent. I wish they wouldn't do that. I mean, if I was going to run for something, I think I would just try to focus on what I think is the right thing to do and hope that people would like those ideas. But anyway, we have to trash talk each other in politics, I suppose. So anyway, we're getting to see what life would be like if Mr. Biden was president. Last week, he announced that if he were president, unlike Trump, he would mandate nationally that all people wear masks. So he would nationalize all these rules that we have going on. Wouldn't that be fun? And in an event at a high school in Wilmington, Delaware, he announced his love and admiration for Mr. Fauci, the incompetent criminal who's in large part responsible for this mess. Before the speech, the Biden campaign released an updated plan for fighting the coronavirus and said, given the current circumstances we face as a result of President Trump's failures, the plan said that minutes after he's declared the winner of the election, Mr. Biden will call Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, and ask him to work for Mr. Biden just as he has worked for past presidents. This is a quote. Dr. Fauci will have full access to the Oval Office and an uncensored platform to speak directly to the American people, whether delivering good news or bad. The plan involves issues like improving testing and tracing, supplying personal protective equipment, and developing a vaccine. In his speech, Mr. Biden encouraged the president to adopt this plan in his entirety. And then he criticized the president for holding rallies and said, I'm going to follow the doctor's orders, Fauci's orders, not just for me, but for the country. So if you like masks, you want a national mandate for masks, and if you want more of Mr. Fauci, because we know how well that's all worked out, and you would like to have more testing and more contact tracing and more vaccines, we got to vote for Biden, right? That's what he says. You can read it online, verbatim. I read it to you. That's part of his plan. More Fauci, more masks, more testing, more tracing, and more vaccines. Gotta love it, right? What a wonderful country we're going to live in if that happens. All right, lawsuits. Always lawsuits are good. Attorney Tom Anderson has filed 30 complaints and is filing more every day against Giant Eagle. And the reason is that people who had health issues, like asthma and COPD and emphysema and PTSD and anxiety attacks and other problems, were turned away from Giant Eagle because they would not wear a mask. They told people who stopped them at the door what their problems were, or said that they didn't say the problems. They just said, I have a medical exemption. And the store employees were not supposed to ask what the condition was. And instead of saying, okay, come on in, they said, well, you can stand here and we'll do curbside service, or you can order online. Well, that's not appropriate. And in fact, the order from the Pennsylvania Department of Health reads verbatim: individuals who cannot wear a mask due to a medical condition may enter the premises and are not required to provide documentation of such medical conditions. So Giant Eagle clearly violated that rule. Anderson said that this basically relegates people who have health issues to second-class status. He filed these complaints in both federal and state court, and a judge ordered him to consolidate them into one lawsuit, which is to be expected, and he's asked for an injunction to keep this from happening anymore. So one thing that I would suggest that you do, look at Peggy Hall and her videos, The Healthy American. Just Google Peggy Hall, you'll go to her website. She has a lot of great information on the mask issue. And one of the things that we're doing, we've printed it off, we've highlighted the sections where it says we don't have to wear masks and they can't ask us why. And you can have a pretty mask-free existence if you choose to. So just look into that. Lots of resources on her website, and just go to your local health department, wherever the order is coming from. If it's a city, if it's a county, if it's a governor, whatever, go find it and you'll find that there are exemptions. All right, you gotta love it when a lawsuit against the Emperor Cuomo and New York City Emperor Bill de Blasio is won. And so the court just issued a major victory for a group that unfairly targeted religious gatherings for strict limitation both indoors and outdoors. So the judge ruled that Cuomo and de Blasio could not allow mass gatherings of thousands for protests over the George Floyd issue or Black Lives Matter, while banning outdoor religious gatherings of more than 10 to 25 people, depending on the region of New York State. Cuomo and de Blasio had further singled out religious worship by restricting indoor religious gatherings to 25% of building capacity, while every other business or entity is allowed to operate at 50 or even 100%, including restaurants in New York's North Country region. The court concluded, quote, "Indeed, in the absence of an injunction, plaintiffs' religious activities will be burdened and continue to be treated less favorably than comparable secular activities. An injunction, on the other hand, does not undercut defendants' interest in controlling the spread of COVID-19, provided that the plaintiffs abide by social distancing guidance." So outdoor religious gatherings now in New York have no restrictions other than proper social distancing, and indoor religious gatherings will allow to operate at 50% capacity, just like other secular activities in New York with proper distancing. Cuomo and de Blasio had actually threatened religious communities with fines and jail time, and actively encouraged, even participated in the protest. However, religion, bad. Protesting, good. I think protesting is okay, but not at the expense of religion being not okay. Cuomo and de Blasio openly proclaimed that religious freedom and religious speech were less important and less protected than the free speech of the protesters. And for any of you who think that's not true, I want you to remember something. When you stand by and you watch a person or a group of persons' civil rights being decimated, sooner or later they're going to come after you. And if you don't stand up for those other people, who do you think is going to stand up for you when the despots decide that you're on the list of people that they want to get rid of? Okay? Just keep that in mind. One of these days, some of these people who've participated in all this snitching and they've been co-conspirators with the criminals who are doing this are going to get their day. Believe me. What goes around comes around. So anyway, it's a massive win for religious freedom. Congratulations to the group that actually made this happen. And part of one of the reasons I share this kind of stuff with you is so that we can encourage this type of activity in other areas. These people need to have a lawsuit filed against them every 92 seconds. That's how we're going to end this sooner. To the place where the attorney generals in the various states are calling and saying, we're going to have to hire 5,000 more lawyers just to deal with all these lawsuits. We got to keep them busy this way. This is just one of the things we have to do. There's more. There is more to come. So keep watching. And remember, makeamericans.freeagain.com. Get yourself registered. Help us out. Tell everybody else. Get a lot of people involved. That's what we've got to do to make this nonsense go away. Thank you for watching. I'll be back to you tomorrow with more news.